World Religions, Section 2, Judaism. When and where did Judaism begin? According to the story, what different groups did the Jews fight with? According to the Jews, how was the earth made? Is this story familiar to you? How is this similar to the Hindu creation story? How is it different? What is the oral Torah? When was it written down? What are some beliefs in Judaism? What do they have in common with each other? Use the web to find out more about keeping kosher and observing Yom Kippur, one of the major Jewish holidays. The story of the Jews. Now, all of this comes from ancient Jewish text and the Old Testament of the Christian Bible. So that is where all of these stories come from. In Mesopotamia, in about 1900 BCE, a man named Abraham sowed the seeds of the Jewish faith when he began a religion that followed just one God. In the Hebrew Bible, or Old Testament, it is said that God promised Abraham that all the nations of the world would be blessed through his children. So Abraham took his followers, known as the Israelites, from Mesopotamia to find a new civilization in Canaan, the lush area between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. Abraham had 12 great-grandsons, and each formed his own tribe. These were the 12 tribes of Israel, and each one ruled over a separate territory. The tribes were named after each great-grandson: Asher, Benjamin, Dan, Gad, Issachar, Joseph, Judah, Levi, Naphtali, Reuben, Simon, and Zebulun. Forced to flee. Drought forced the Israelites to leave Canaan for Egypt. The Egyptians were suspicious of this new religious group, and the Israelites were condemned to suffer years of slavery. Then, in 1200 BC, an Israelite leader named Moses led his people back to Canaan, known as the Promised Land. According to the Bible, on his way he raised his staff and the Red Sea parted, allowing the Israelites to cross. When the Egyptian army followed, Moses raised his staff again and the sea crashed down, drowning them. After a 200-year struggle, the 12 tribes were reunited under Saul, the first Israelite king, and then David, a young Judean warrior. The First Temple. It was David's son, Solomon, who captured Jerusalem and reunited the Hebrew nation in 990 BCE. There he built the magnificent First Temple, the first place of worship for the Hebrew God. The 12 tribes of Israel split. The 2 southern tribes formed Judea, and 10 northern tribes formed Israel. The people of the tribe Judea became known as the Jews. Jewish exile. By 722, the Assyrian army from the north of Mesopotamia had conquered the northern kingdom of Israel. Then, in 586 BCE, the Babylonians destroyed the first temple and killed the Jewish leaders. The surviving Jews were forced into exile in Babylon, starting what is known as the diaspora, the scattering of Jewish communities outside of the Promised Land. When the Persians conquered Babylon in 539 BCE, some Jews returned to Jerusalem while others remained in exile. The Second Temple. The king of Syria outlawed Judaism in 168 BCE. For years, a revolutionary Jewish movement called the Maccabees staged a rebellion, eventually rebuilding the temple in Jerusalem. Today, their 164 BCE revolt is celebrated as the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. The Maccabees soon founded the Hasmonean dynasty, where they ruled as high priests and kings. In 37 BCE, the Romans captured Jerusalem and installed Herod as king. By 20 BCE, Herod had built Jerusalem's second temple, using 1,000 priests as laborers. By 6 BCE, Judea became a Roman province. Origin story. This origin story is also shared by Christians, so it's probably pretty familiar to most folks. This comes from the Old Testament. In the beginning there was no earth or sky or sea animals, and then God spoke in the darkness, "Let there be light," and right away there was light, scattering the darkness and showing the infinite space. "That's good," said God. "From now on, when it's dark, it will be night, and when it's light, it will be day." The evening came, and the night passed, and the light returned. That was the first day. On the second day, God made the earth, and over it he carefully hung a vast blue sky. He stood back and admired his creation. "That's good too," said God, and the second day was over. The next morning, God looked around and thought, "The earth needs to be a bit more organized." So he put all the water in one place and all the dry land in another. When he finished that, God made plants to cover the land. Dandelions and daffodils appeared. All sorts of trees and grasses began to grow. "It's looking great," said God, and that was the end of the third day. On the fourth day, God looked around and thought, the daylight still needs a bit more work, and the night is just too dark. So he made the sun to light the sky during the day, and the moon and stars to add a bit of sparkle to the night. He hung them in the sky and stepped back to look at his work. This is coming along very well. The next day, God turned his attention to the water that he had collected in the oceans. I want to see these waters teeming with life. As soon as he said it, it was so. In no time, there were millions of small fish darting through the shallow water and huge fish swimming in the ocean. God made birds, too. He sent them soaring through the air. Ah, that is good, said God. The dust fell over the water, and the sky grew dark, and that was the end of the fifth day. On the sixth day, God added creatures to the land. He made lions and tigers and bears. He made rabbits and sheep and cows. He added everything from ants to zebras to the land. But he still felt something was missing. So God added mankind to enjoy and take care of all that he had created. God looked around and was happy with all he had made. After 6 days, the whole universe was completed. On the seventh day, God had a nice long rest and enjoyed looking at all that he had made. The history of the Old Testament. The Old Testament is a collection of 39 books about the history and religion of the people of Israel. The authors of these books are unknown, and each book possesses a unique tone, style, and message. Individually, they include stories, laws, and sayings that are intended to function as models of religious and ethical conduct. Together, through hundreds of characters and detailed events, they represent a unified narrative about God and his attempt to relate to mankind by relating to a specific group of people. Holy books. To the Jews, there is no Old Testament. The books that the Christian call the New Testament are not part of the Jewish scripture. The so-called Old Testament is known to us as written Torah or the Tanakh. So when you're at church or someone refers to something in the Old Testament, that is the same thing that folks who practice Judaism would use, but they would not call it the Old Testament. They call it the Torah, the Tanakh. This is a list of the books of written Torah in the order in which they appear in Jewish translations. The Hebrew names of the first 5 books are derived from the first few words of the book. The text of each book is more or less the same in Jewish translations as what you see in Christian Bibles, although there are some occasional slight differences in the numbering of verses, and there are some slight differences in the translation. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. In addition to the written scriptures, we have the oral Torah, a tradition of explaining what the above scriptures mean and how to interpret them and apply them to the laws. Orthodox Jews believe that God taught the oral Torah to Moses and he taught it to others down to the present day. This tradition was maintained only in oral form until about the 2nd century CE, when the oral law was compiled and written down in a document called the Mishnah. Over the next few centuries, additional commentaries elaborating on the Mishnah were written down in Jerusalem and Babylon. These additional commentaries are known as the Gemara. Gemara and the Mishnah together are known as the Talmud, which was completed in the 5th century CE. Basic beliefs. Judaism does not have any formal mandatory beliefs. The most accepted summary of Jewish beliefs are Rabram's 13 Principles of Faith, and even these basic principles have been debated. Judaism focuses on the relationship between the Creator, mankind, and the land of Israel. The 13 principles are: God exists, God is one and unique, God is incorporeal, God is eternal, prayer is to be directed to God and no other, the words of the prophets are true, Moses' prophecies are true, and Moses was the greatest of the prophets. The written Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, and the oral Torah, teachings now contained in the Talmud, were given to Moses. There will be no other Torah. God knows the thoughts and deeds of men. God will reward and punish the wicked. The Messiah will come. The dead will be resurrected.